I'm going to flight mode you. Oh, but you need one phone on so she can message you in case.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to Shadow to Shine in conjunction with ROKSIA app and myself. My name is Becky Fatemi. I think we've got 17 participants on already. So thank you so much for signing up to this. I felt that this was very, very needed at the moment. I don't know if everyone's going through the same sentiments that I'm going through at the moment, but I am finding myself spiraling in the mornings and spiraling late at night, and really confused as to where the future is for all of the industries. It's quite an interesting position for me because of the Shadow to Shine setup, which is a CIC that I set up with Karina Williams about a year ago. It's actually 1 year anniversary. We see a lot of the younger generation coming to us predominantly for career advice, where we match them with mentors, and we have an employability program, which 9 successful candidates have just completed, predominantly from areas where they are extremely disadvantaged. So we really see the raw core of what they are requiring. And then we speak to mentors on the other side, which direct us to what the feedback is from those candidates, but more importantly, what they are looking to do in recruiting for their individual companies, or whether they're part of a bigger corporate entity. And then you have myself, Becky Fatemi, who is, and I like to define myself as a mogul, because I think to speak it, you must own it. And I'm going to talk about that at the end of this. But my background is predominantly property. I've been in property, the central London market, for over 24 years, having built to date £1.1 billion worth of property sales. We have an all-female team, which is extremely diverse, and I'm going to talk about that. So we come in all shapes and sizes and all different colors, but that is something that has been extremely dear to me, and something which was a big, big drive for me to change the narrative and the face of my industry, which is predominantly white and male. So I work in the central London property market. I also have a presence in Ibiza, and I JV, which is a joint collaboration with an agency called Vin, which is in Paris, which is also run by a single mum called Susie, who has a team of 20 people working under her. And that allows me to keep an eye on the Paris market and allows me to keep an eye on the Ibiza market. I'm going to come back to that, because the reason why I set up the Ibiza arm was because of a quality of life for me, and looking at my database of clients, realizing that they spent all their summers in Ibiza, it was imperative that I was controlling my clients. So how better than to have an office pop up in Ibiza? So I'm able to control the summers and the winters. The 360 is very important, and we're going to talk about that. I then have Rockstone Entertainment, which is actually a company I wound down last year because it was trading at a loss, because I was too heavily invested in my other ventures. But whilst it was a very successful company, we did in excess of £38 million worth of events, and we had very high profile clients. And through Rockstone Entertainment, I had a team which enabled brands to join JV and join up with celebrities predominantly and tastemakers. And this was in an era where brands were not wanting to work with hip hop artists. And I was turning up and saying, look, you need to work with Jay-Z. He needs to back and promote your latest shoe line. And I was laughed out of many boardrooms, many offices. And it's incredible sitting and meetings with Kanye, where we were both sitting down telling people that streetwear was going to be the biggest selling item of clothing in the world, again, being laughed at, and then having him sit at the top of that food chain. So my career has been extremely eventful, and I have done everything. And when I mean I've done everything, I've emceed, I've danced professionally, I've worked in cafes, I've been a cleaner, I've been a nanny, I've been a translator, I've interned for the United Nations, which was a brief stint, which I hated. But coming to Foxtons, after running away from home at 15, having worked in retail at Selfridges for Ralph Lauren, for Karen Millen, being a top salesperson, I fell into telesales, then ended up at Foxtons. Being at Foxtons before I set up on my own, I was there for 11 years where I banked £15 million, and to date, I am still the top selling salesperson in the history of Foxtons since it was set up. As a woman and as a woman of color. I define myself as a woman of color, and many Iranians may not agree, but it's because I see myself different, and I'm proud of my difference coming to the UK as an immigrant with my family. So that's my past, and I hope that gives everybody an insight into the advice that I'm giving, and that it comes from blood, sweat, and tears, and having walked the walk to give you the best advice I can. I employ people. I've hired people. I've fired people. I have had HR issues. I've had HR, situations which have been very difficult for me to deal with, which I've learned and grown from. I have learned to delegate from being very, very controlling over my career. And I have built up the career of many of my employees and empowered them. I mean, very few bosses get to a point with an employee where it's not working out and they actually find them another job. And that's what I've done. So it's about empowerment, but the biggest thing for me is giving back, which is the social responsibility. I consult for many companies. I currently deal with the top 20% of the richest people in the world. These are MDs, these are entrepreneurs. I spend time with them in their personal homes. I get to know them intimately because I'm housing them, but it also allows me an insight. My mentor is John Hunt, who sold his company for 380 million, and Puff Daddy, who I used to work for, who runs one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world. So I make sure that I'm guided by people that have succeeded, and that's something that we're going to talk about. I think it's important when we talk about careers and where we're going in the next decade. We are now in a new decade, and with COVID, it's been interesting that people are not focusing that this is a new beginning. It is a new decade. We had 2020 vision last year, and the thing that's the most on our heads right now is how am I going to earn money, and how is my skill set going to be respected and appreciated, and what is happening with my career and the industry that I work in. So I'm going to try and keep this as broad as I can. So we're going to go to the past. And talking about the past, I want to give you some statistics. In 2018, the unemployment rate was 4.2%. In 2019, the unemployment rate was 3.85%. It went down. 2020, it went up to 4.8%. It's actually expected to reach around 6.8% by the end of 2021. These figures are going to drastically change when furlough finishes, probably at the end of April. And we're going to talk about furlough later. And the most important industries for the UK, which is what we're going to be specific in, are manufacturing, construction, and tourism. So those are the three industries which do very well. And during the 21st century, the tourism industry was larger than ever, employing 1 out of every 12 people and contributing to 5% of the global GDP. 10% of the UK's economy is tourism, which is interesting, which is supporting almost 3.8 million jobs for people. So right now, 3.8 million people are not functioning if they're on furlough because there is no tourism currently with COVID. 2019, last year, 2 years ago, 67% of business leaders claim to have used temporary or interim professional, predominantly consultants, to support their projects. And 50% of executives, such as myself, have tapped into the independent workforce. I currently employ 7 consultants, as well as my 9 full-time staff, to help find talent they require on a permanent basis. But as an entrepreneur, when you're talking about employing people, you have national insurance contributions, you have HR contracts, and you have more obligations after 2 years of employment than ever. So contractual work and consultancy work allows you the freedom, but it's important that you have a legal contract with any consultant and any contractor. And if you are a contractor and a consultant, that you have a document that's not just your invoice, that gives you clarity on your vision. And you have the same appraisals with those consultants that you would with your team. So that's really imperative. Coming into the present, we are talking about 18 to 24-year-olds have been most affected by the unemployment, and the job loss of this age group is going to cause them to have a lifetime income loss of probably around 2%. The government has set up the following business support schemes and packages. So I really want everyone to jot these down. If you don't, you might already know them. You could Google them, but I think no one has had a soundboard to go to, where you have got business support schemes. So if you're a business, you've got the coronavirus job retention scheme, which is furlough, and that's been extended until April 2021. The job support scheme, which is the JSS, the self-employed income support scheme, has been extended to the 30th of April if you're self-employed. The coronavirus bounce back loan for some UK businesses who have been negatively impacted and not already in receipt of funding. There are new lockdown grants. Please check with your borough. Please check and buddy up with someone in your borough whether you are eligible for any of these things, whether you're self-employed, whether you are whichever industry you're in, and what your independent borough and council are offering. There are grants of up to £9,000 for commercial properties to support retail and hospitality and leisure businesses and any business that's forced to close. I'm an estate agent. If I'm forced to close, I need to keep an eye on the news. With your career, you have to keep updated on the news, the gov.uk website, get notifications. It's quite overwhelming, but keep updated on what is available for you in any capacity. The government has got funding. The National Lottery has come funding if you're a CIC or a charity. But be prepared to fill out lots and lots of paperwork, delegate, bring someone back from furlough in your team, start doing it, ask for advice, go to Seed Legals. There are lawyers there that can perhaps give you advice. There are people there to help. Speak to your mentor about it. Ask your mentor to help. Find a mentor. The Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme allows businesses to borrow a loan up to 5 million, open for small and medium businesses up until the 30th of March 2021. I applied for a loan. I got a loan of £130,000, which I have not touched. It is interest-free and it was due to run out in December. I then contacted my bank and went above my loan guy who refused an extension and got an extension now for a further 6 months at interest-free. That is a buffer in the event that my business and the world locks down, which it obviously, as I predicted, has done. I have something that will continue supporting my business until I'm able to open the doors back up. So you need to take advantage of these things. If it's an interest-free loan, get it, apply for it and get it, and it will take time. But you must have a personal relationship with your banker. The COVID restrictions in March put over a third of the global population into lockdown. A month later, the ILO recorded the 1.6 billion workers in the informal economy, or almost half the world's labour force, stood in immediate danger of having their livelihoods destroyed. Back in September, the ILO, which is the International Labour Organization, forecasted that 245 million full-time jobs could be lost globally in the final quarter of the year of 2020 alone, which is what is happening. The reason why I'm giving you statistics is because it's a shit show. And I'm going to swear, and I apologize, maybe not the most professional on the webinar. If you are doing the best you can and it doesn't work out, I really can't stress you enough. It's a public announcement. I feel like I'm reading the news, but it is a global pandemic that whatever field you're in, you are going to be affected. You have to use this time, and we're going to come into how you use this time to improve your career outlook for the next decade and the projections of which industry is going to be needing your skill set the most and how you can adapt that later. So mental health. The employees who have more autonomy over their work are found to be happier with their lives. Shift to remote and flexible working could therefore boost employee well-being. That's Stanford University. If you run a business, try and get flexible working time or hours. One of my employees has had a baby. We're working together. She's working from home 3 days a week. She comes into the office 2 days a week. I'm here to support and grow, especially if I'm employing a all-female team. But you have to have these conversations. You have to communicate. Communication as an employer, an employee as well, both sides. You have to have more communication coming into the next decade. The future, let's discuss what's going to be happening. Which directions are things going in? So which industries are going to be hit the hardest in 2021? Unemployment is probably expected to hit 6.8. The manufacturing industry is going to be hit the hardest because of Brexit. Hospitality, entertainment, tourism industries will also be hit because of COVID. And we predict by the end of 2021, it'll be more than 6% smaller than before the COVID health crisis. Travel and transportation jobs have an unemployment rate of 2.6 higher now due to COVID. Office space. 74% of financial industries are reconsidering their office space due to COVID. 50% of the biggest UK employers have no intention of returning to office space in the next 6 months. If you're thinking of opening up a coffee shop next to the city where there are 100 offices, you might want to reconsider that. WeWork founder is opening up new co-working spaces, capitalizing on its ability to provide work-life separation, whilst many agencies are giving their main office space. Unused office space due to COVID can cost about £13 billion to businesses, and 1 in 10 workers said they didn't want to go back to the office at all. Future work. The 40% of the Europe workforce is expected to have developed significant new skills in the next 10 years. That's McKinsey. Automation puts 51 million jobs in Europe at risk. That's from McKinsey. 1.2 million globally, which equates to 14.6 trillion disruption in wages. You need to get advanced on your computer and IT and digital and social media skill set. Otherwise, you're going to fall behind in any industry. The prediction is that over 50% of jobs will be changed by automation and 5% will be eliminated. And 9 out of 10 jobs will require a digital skill. Start getting digital. Get to know digital. More demand for a work-life balance. If you're running a company, understand that. 60% of people say flexible work is critically important. When I employ top-tier candidates, the one thing they talk about before wages and the one thing that you'll find as an employee is quality of life. You cannot ignore it now. 25 to 30% of the workforce will be working from home multiple days a week by the end of 2021, says President of Global Workplace Analytics. And the future of hiring and video interviews, that's the future. Entrepreneurship. 1 to 3 Americans currently freelance at some point, and I'm sure it's the same stat in the UK. 28% of people freelance full-time, which meaning they're self-employed. Studies show freelancers are happier than traditional workers, and we have concerns that a whole generation of entrepreneurs could be lost because of the disruption caused to the economy by Brexit and COVID. The report highlights the need for communication between entrepreneurs and found many expressed relief at the reduced need for travel to meet with customers and investors to attend trade shows. So there is a bit of positivity at the end of this grim tunnel. But these are my recommendations for the past, present, and future and how to go into the next decade. Own your history and research your skill set and know where your skill set is going. Join think tanks and communities to lean on. Clubhouse is considered the new Twitter. Be very careful on the rooms that you're going into if you are part of Clubhouse. I think it's oversaturated personally at the moment. I use it only to advise me on things and to build my internal network, encompassing that with MySpace, I'm showing my age, LinkedIn and Instagram. You have to sell yourself harder. There is not more of an important time. You're going against computers. If the world is heading towards automation, it sounds a bit drastic, but you have to sell the need for you to an employer more than ever. Need more than a CV to get hired. The CVs never cut it. You know that you can never encompass what you're trying to do on that. It needs to be more personal. Make sure that employers are well aware of all of your social media platforms, but then edit your social media platforms accordingly. Don't be flippant with Instagram, with Facebook. You having a great time in Ibiza or in Ghana or Dubai or where you may be, that's fantastic. But if you're representing my brand, I'm going to need to understand your social, moral, and what you put out there. So have an Instagram profile that's private and have one that you want embodies everything that you do creatively. I'm running out of letters. Target your network. Make sure that you understand that your network is your net worth. Go through your black book. Make sure that you're personally calling people, setting up a Zoom, looking at people in the face and explaining to them, do you know that I know that you thought I was a photographer, but you know I'm not just a photographer, I'm also a makeup artist. You know that I'm also a kick-ass PA. Be aware that you have to be versatile, but if someone likes you and they can apply your skill set, sit down and write your skill set. Know going into the next decade what your skill set is. If you cannot write quickly in 5 points what your skill set is, there's a problem. Take time to do that. Build yourself as a personal brand. The more and more I work with clients, people, especially in the creative industry, build yourself a personal brand. My Instagram profile was always BFatRock, my MC name, oddly. I am now Becky Fatemi because I am the brand. We are all multifaceted. So understand that you are the brand, whether you're an employee or an employer, an entrepreneur or self-employed. Continuous reskilling. So understand that you have to update your skill set in every industry. If you're in hospitality, health and safety rules, understand the changes in Brexit. If you're in fashion, the same, the changes in Brexit. If you're in property, the changes in legislation, the tax changes. If you're in the financial industry, understand in relation to KYC, AML, that's anti-money laundering, know your client. Understand the legalities needed if you're employing people, an HR contract. Understand, get legal advice. Set up the IP if you own a company, own your .com, go to GoDaddy, find it. If it's BeckyFatemi.com, I own it. I think I own about 17 different company names just in case at any time I want to flip the switch. Build a professional development plan and budget it into your regular calendar. Understand that if you don't have a big whiteboard with dates on it of goals where you want to get to in the next decade, have an end goal of every year at the end of that decade, you know, each year, 2021, 2022, what you're going to get to at the end of it. And get comfortable that you might have to go back to scratch. You know, we're all students in this. You're forever a student. The world, all the world is a stage, and merely are we actors, I think is the quote by Shakespeare. I think I've slightly edited that and remixed it. But please understand that you have to go back to basics and always be on top, always change the skill set, empower it. Currently, the 15 most in-demand jobs in the UK, if you're looking for work, is one as a teacher, second as a geologist, physical therapist, skilled trades, engineer, hospitality, and creatives. So as you're a creative, those are the fields that people are looking for. The jobs on the way out, unfortunately, if you are one of the people with this skill set, I'm not here to scare you, but it's just a preemption of this is where the statistics are heading. Travel agents, printers, bank tellers, taxi drivers, telemarketers, bookkeepers, and photo developers. So that is currently what the statistics show. Now let's go into the crux of where do I personally see careers moving. I believe that we are coming out of a revolution, about to enter into a new industrial revolution where digital will be taking over. At the moment, the statistics show that on average, we spend just up to 2 hours a day on social media platforms, more than ever now. And if you consider how many social media platforms there are, engage in someone that can teach you how to use those social media platforms. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram are the top headliners. Now we have Clubhouse to add to that. Be very careful on Twitter what you're tweeting. Understand that that is not owned by you. Understand that all of these platforms, the data is not protected and not owned by you. It is owned by the powers above, the big machines that will control it. Be very, very up to date on news. But when I mean the news, I don't mean the Daily Fail. I don't mean the Daily Mail, where you can flitter between the showbiz section and the political section. Reuters, you know, BBC, even those are slightly edited in accordance with how they want the wind to blow, but make sure that you are up to date on it. It is really important that you have a toolkit. Your toolkit is what you have at home, which is your new office if you are working from home. Build an office that emulates what you have if you're coming from an office. And if you're a creative and you've never had a workspace, build the workspace so you have a computer. It is important that you're up to date with Vimeo, you're up to date with Zoom, you're up to date with all of those tools that you need, and do courses. Google it. YouTube really helps. But if you're not up to date on Zoom, make sure that your background is good, your lighting is good. Look professional on Zooms. Let it not be chaotic. Get a headset if you need to block out sound. Have a calendar. Use Trello. Trello is something that's very useful for me for tasks. I don't use it. My team uses it. I'm chaos. So I have an incredible team that is extremely organized, that has lists and lists of all the madness that I throw at them. Make sure that you are out there. We're going to thank you for, please do start typing in your Q&As, because I'm going to be coming into Q&As very soon. So please ask questions. I'm here to help you and give you the insight. Accountants, in any capacity, you want to understand your tax situation. You want to understand what tax is due. If you can get a hold on your tax, I've deferred my tax, personal tax and company tax for a year. There are things that you can do with asking a question. So if you have suppliers that you're heavily reliant on as a business, ensure that you're in contact with the suppliers to ask for a pause button. So where's my career going? Let's talk about the industries that you're in. If you're a creative, Richie Sheenack's telling you that you can't be creative, that you need to be going to work for Amazon, that you can't be doing what you want to do, which is what's passionate. I don't believe in that. I believe that we need creators more than ever. And that takes me to the app that I am building that is going to revolutionize the world and change everything. ROKSIA is the app of the future. It is a social media platform. It is the new positive social media platform that allows you to curate your own life. You will have a profile. It'll be your profile. And it is in effect your CV, your business card, all rolled into one, where it is a one-stop shop where you can literally send out your profile in a nanosecond. Someone receives it, they can come back to you straight away. We are limited on spaces. The feedback has been unbelievable, and we are nearly at full capacity for the free spaces that we were willing to offer. So I definitely implore you that if you're here for career advice and you want to change your future and control it, please sign up to ROKSIA. And by the way, it's not a cult that I'm building. Everyone's like, what's this Mason Rock Nation, diamonds in the air? Just to be clear that I wanted a triangle because we're here to take you to the top. That's simply it. ROKSIA is here to take you to the top. It is not about liking. I don't owe your data. It is my platform. But career-wise, you have to be a step ahead of where the world is going. I know that the future is tech. I know that I have ideas. I know that I need to look into it. So for the last year, I have independently built an app with an incredible team around me who I've given equity to because they're part of this movement. Understand that in your career, you have to ask and be clear on what your expectations are of where you want it to get to. No employer will take you seriously. I will never take someone seriously if they don't know what they want at the end. And the people that I've employed are the ones that have told me, I'm probably going to be with you for 2 to 3 years. Then I want to be the biggest cultural creator in the world. So one of my consultants has been very honest in the fact that they want to go in and set up their own business. If I know that, I'm going to help you get the maximum out of you while you're with me and help you grow to the next stage. And that's how it is. You're never going to have, very rarely, teams that, unless you give them equity, are part of the team. If you are an employee, ask for equity. But going back to this, where is your career in the next decade? Your career is your career. It is for you to look at where the holes are in any industry. And there is the best thing that I ever signed up to is something called Business Insider. I pay, it's quite a lot. I think it's 90 quid a year or 100 quid a year. But Business Insider and Trends, which is another thing that I sign up to, and TED Talks. Everything that I do now, I used to be really ratchet and love reality TV and housewives of this, housewives of that. I'm not a housewife, and it wasn't getting me anywhere. So now I really ensure that the time I spend is watching things that are going to expand my mindset. So I want to go into Q&A now. So let me have a look at the questions that are popping up, guys. I wanted to please vote, by the way, guys. I'm launching a poll. I would really appreciate this because I'm going to follow up this webinar probably in 2 weeks. So can you please all tap in on what you are and what stage you are at? And it would be really interesting to gauge from you if I go into the Q&A, if I'm able to multitask at the same time. I can start answering these while you're doing this. How do I feel about IR35 and the impact it is going to have for consultants, but also for entrepreneurs who need flexible workforce with niche and specialist knowledge? I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know what IR35 is. So I'm going to Google it now and come back to you and answer you as best as I can. And I should know maybe, but because maybe it's something I've delegated to my accountant. So I will have a look. What is the best advice you have ever been given career-wise or business-wise? The best advice I've ever been given career-wise or business-wise is definitely to follow my gut. Follow your gut. Whether you're an employee, people always say entrepreneurs are the ones that follow their guts. But if you feel that something is not right in your journey, it's okay for it not to have worked out. I have done everything and been everything to get to the point of now being a woman in tech. I'm a tech developer. If you'd asked me 15 years ago, what did I want to be? It wasn't that. I wanted it to be something that allowed me to live. So I look at my quality of life, which is why I've gone into tech. So the best advice I would say to you is follow your gut. If you walk into a company, it might be the company of your dreams that you want to work for, that I've done many times. Look around. If the social environment's not right for your mind, don't ever take that job. No amount of money will quantify the mental health that you need to safeguard. So should we be entrepreneurs instead of employees? That's an absolutely brilliant question. Should we be entrepreneurs instead of employees? Let's talk about, if you Google what is an entrepreneur and what is an employee. I'm going to tell you because I was an employee for 11 years and I've been an entrepreneur since I was 17. I ran the two at the same time. So I think there are two ways of answering that. If you want to do one or the other, run both at the same time. I mean, check your employability contract, because some of your employability contracts restrict you from doing anything else if it's in the same field. Have a conversation with the person that's employing you and say, look, just to let you know, I run a jewelry company, I do this, that's my hobby. So it's aware and they can't stop you from doing it. So please check that. But entrepreneurs sacrifice a lot. It is blood, sweat, and tears. The best way I can describe to you what it is to be an entrepreneur is to give birth to something. You're never going to walk away from it. It's day and night. You have to get up and feed it 6 times a day. It gets to a point when it turns into a teenager where it starts back chatting you. So please be aware that being an entrepreneur gives you the ability and freedom to control everything, but that comes with a liability of stress. It affects your mindset, and it's a roller coaster. As an employee, you have that safety net of all of the back of house things being done for you. As an entrepreneur, you're doing the admin, you're doing the running of the business, you're doing everything. As an employee, sometimes you don't have as much of a voice, but maybe run both at the same time. Anissa, thank you. Congratulations on ROKSIA. When is ROKSIA launching, and what are some of the cool features that hiring managers can use? That's a really good question. So please sign up. ROKSIA is launching just to a selected 1,000 number of people. So once you, by the way, if you're signing up, we can't guarantee that you'll be accepted. It depends on how you're filling up your form. And by the way, it's only this exclusive just because we need to test run it to make sure that there's no glitches and it runs well, because once you roll out, you need to make sure that it is seamless. It is launching on January the 18th, but please sign up now, as in today, as we've already reached capacity nearly. Some of the cool features are that you have the ability to input it and curate it the way you want to. So for example, Anissa will have her profile. And if you are someone that is a hiring manager, it will be that you are a hiring manager. It will link to the company that you work for. So it allows whoever's coming to have an interview with you to see your profile. And it won't be you cooking dinner in the evenings as an Instagram, or you with the latest filter. It's simply, I am Anissa Taraj. This is what I'm here to tell you I am. This is what I'm here to do. And this is my legacy. This is everything about me, but only, I would say it's very much a new social media platform that is solely on career and who you are in relation to your employment and your employability and how you want to be employed and how you want the world to see you. And it allows you to be available for volunteer work, consultancy work, connections, you control it. So yeah, and in relation to hiring managers, you will have a company profile page and you'll have your own page, and you'll be able to, through the filters, decide the type of candidate that you're looking for. There's a search engine at the top, which allows you to search in relation to the area that you're looking in. So if you're looking for a consultant in W1 that specializes in tech, all of them will come up and you'll swipe left and right, very much like Tinder. I hope that answers that. Can we enter as both as an entrepreneur and employed on the survey? Yes, you can. I believe so. I will check that. But if not, go back in and I would do the survey again as the entrepreneur as the employee. Would you do anything differently if given the opportunity? Would I do anything differently if I was given the opportunity? I would have been a lot more knowledgeable on HR regulations and rules when it comes to employing people. I would have definitely, when I was self-employed and still am self-employed, when I had my company, knew the value of my skill set, rang around. When I was a stylist and people asked me how much my day rate was, I didn't have a clue. I was styling Rihanna for £150. She was front page of all the newspapers, and I was getting £150. If I'd phoned a couple of other stylists and known that their rate card was £1,000, I would have charged £2,000. So do your research. Sometimes we run. ROKSIA, I'm not in a rush to take over the world right now. It will. But if it takes me 2 or 3 years, it's part of the process. So I think if anything I would do differently is to slow things down, and also be very careful that I would never employ a best friend again, because I lost one of my best friends from working with them. So that's another advice. Do I have any books that you would suggest I read? I do have a book list. So on my Instagram, there is a link tree that takes you to my Amazon list of books that I recommend. There's about 11 on there. But Eckhart Tolle, I can never say it correctly, sorry, it's one of my favorite. And really weirdly, on the flip side, I read Gabriela Garcia Marquez, who's a Latin American writer who wrote an incredible book called The 100 Years of Solitude. I would also read George Orwell by 1984, because he predicted the world that we're living in now. I would keep your book selection, not just motivational, not just business. I would read psychology books. Mark Zuckerberg, who set up Facebook, did his degree in psychology, eventually dropped out, if I'm right. but make sure that you are reading about different things. Yeah. How have you best harnessed your relationship with clients? Communication and continual communication and knowing the intricate details. So all of my clients, I know their birthdays because of the AML and the anti-money laundering. They have to fill out their birthday, send a copy of their passport. So I make sure they get a birthday card, they get flowers. If something's happening, I send a card, I send orchids. That's my tagline, you know, an orchid coming through the door, it's from me to say congratulations. Be very personal, you know, call people, don't just do a generic text at Christmas and New Year. That is how you keep a relationship with a client. You make them feel like you give a shit, that they are the top of your pile. Every client wants to feel that they are your only client. So the more clients you take on, the more you're leveraged. So maybe take on less clients and focus on them more and work through their families. So ask them, brothers, sisters, cousins who might want your skill set or your product. Have you ever had imposter syndrome? Everyone's talking about imposter syndrome on all the Clubhouse talks. It's imposter syndrome. I want to read. I'm going to go back to the IR35 question as well. Have I had imposter syndrome where you feel like you're walking? I think 100% where I felt like I'm not meant to be there. I think if that's what it means, is that what imposter syndrome means? Yeah, where I pretended to be. To be honest, I blagged most of my life, and I know that sounds really unprofessional and maybe something that some people that have employed me didn't want to hear. But when I decided to go into property and be an estate agent, it was only because I realized how much money it could make. And coming from telesales, which was me calling 400 people to get one sale, I then flipped it and I was like, people are calling me to spend 20 million on a house. Like, this is the most beautiful thing. But I was an imposter. We're all imposters at the beginning because you've never done it before. But imposter syndrome can only go away in your mind if you believe in yourself. And to believe in yourself, you need to know about your true, authentic self. If you don't take time to meditate 10 minutes a day and have a best friend around you that tells you about yourself, you will always be facing that. So I think that's just a mindset thing. I've had it. I don't have it now because I believe in myself. What advice would I give to someone trying to set up a new business in the current climate? I'm going to come back to that. How do I feel about IR35? IR35 is shorthand for the UK tax legislation that is designed to identify contractors and businesses which are avoiding paying the appropriate tax by working as disguised employees or engaging workers on a self-employed basis to disguise their true employment status. Right. How do I feel about IR35 and the impact it's going to have? So IR35, I do know about IR35 because it basically means that what the government is trying to do is trying to regulate exactly what I discussed at the beginning was, why do I need to employ people and pay national insurance contributions and, you know, and pay payroll when I can just pay an invoice at the end of every month with no tax implications to me? Yeah, no tax, no national insurance. That is why they are implementing this. It's going to have an impact. I think you have to understand that as a consultant, I believe, I'm not an HR specialist, but HR Solutions is the company I work with and use. Please contact HR Solutions if you want advice. They charge, I think, £50 an hour. Tell them that I sent you, Becky Fatemi at Rockstone. But I would say that be careful, because as consultants and for entrepreneurs who want a flexible workforce with a niche specialist knowledge, the problem you're going to have is you need to understand that most consultants and contractors own what they're working on. And also, eventually, after a certain amount of time, if your consultant or your contractor is doing the same thing continually, they immediately will become an employee. And that is something that you need to check in. So how do I feel about it? I don't feel great about anything where, you know, there's tax legislation, because I think it's a crime that we pay the amount of tax that we pay. But I definitely know that one thing I don't mess around with is tax and HR. So when it comes to my employees, I'm very straight down the line with contracts, knowing what tax I should pay. I never don't pay tax. And by the way, the way I run my invoices as an entrepreneur and as an employee, and by the way, if you're self-employed, get an accountant to look at your tax code as well. Be very careful that every invoice that comes in, you take 20% out as a business and you put it straight into another bank account. And the same thing, if you earn above 75,000, you have to become VAT registered. Also do the same thing. Make sure that 20%. So every invoice that comes in, which I charge plus VAT, 20% to 25 or 20% goes out to the VAT bank account, and the tax goes. So I just paid an incredibly high tax bill where I had the money already in the bank. Never dip into your tax account. Just don't do it. Go and get a loan. Don't do it. You have to pay the tax, man, right now. So that's how I feel. I hope that answers it. But again, I'm not a tax specialist. What advice would I give to someone trying to set up a new business in the current climate, new entrepreneurs? I don't believe that there's been a better time to set up as a new entrepreneur and set up a new business, but investigate the field you're going to. Right now, you have the time, you have a pause. The world has had a pause button pressed on it. This gives you the time to really look at where the next decade is going. And I think it's going to be digital. And if you're not able to get digital, understand what it is to be digital and understand how your chosen career path is going to be impacted by the way the world is changing, whether it's the Brexit situation, whether it is the changes in legislation. Another very valid point, if you're in an industry where there are changes in legislation, as such as mine, be up to date on the changes in legislation and be compliant. Compliance is one of the biggest factors in the next decade, transparency. And if you are an entrepreneur, I don't think it's ever been a better time. You know, this is the time for you to own it, run with it, grow with it, trip up, fail, graze your knees, break a leg, and keep it moving. Is having my own business actually always better than a 9-to-5? It's funny because when I had a 9-to-5, my 9-to-5 wasn't a 9-to-5 at Foxtons, it was a 9-to-8 because I worked overtime and I took it home. So I think you know if you're an entrepreneur or not. An entrepreneur is, by the way, in running your own business, is more full-time than ever. So the beauty of your 9-to-5 is usually that you can clock in and clock out. When you're an entrepreneur and you have your own business, it's a 24-hour thing. No matter which way you look at it, you can go to all the retreats you want. It's a 24-hour thing. As a newbie in London and a woman in tech and the corporation and the corporate social responsibility space, what are some of the clubs or women's clubs one should join? Anissa, please tell me. I don't know of any. I'm not part of any women's clubs. I've ended up setting them up my own on Clubhouse. I have one now for women in music, and I have one that's on Tuesdays at 9, and on Sundays I have one for the ups and downs in the fashion industry. But I would love to know. There is a group for women in property, but it's not the most engaging. So maybe as a newbie in London and being a woman in tech, you've got someone that's going to join your responsibility. I'm also in corporate social responsibility. So set up a club. You've got a member straight away here. I'll sign up straight away. Bianca, would you recommend taking out a loan to fund your new business venture if you don't have the finances ready available? I definitely didn't take out any lending or didn't borrow any money when I set up, because I didn't want that extra pressure on my head. But that was then when the interest rates were a lot higher. Now with the interest rates being so low, I think if you are taking out a loan, have a mentor to sit down with you and work out what that money's going to. I'm mentoring a client at the moment, and actually it was on the Clubhouse that I was in as well. A fashion designer said that she's got £10,000 and she's going to put it into this, and all of the other fashion designers were like, oh my god, if I had £10,000 when I started, that would have been amazing. So don't always be taken in by the fact that you need that much money to start unless it's the product. But if it's your product led and you're setting up your own business and you're buying, let's say, 1,000 jumpers, be very careful on what's going to happen with that stock if it's not going to sell and how you're going to shift it. So do I think a loan is a good idea? I think you are able with social media to start the buzz on your business straight away, depending on, I think it depends on the field you're in. But my advice is try not to take out a loan. And when you need to take out a loan, make sure it's the lowest interest and read your loan agreement. My loan agreement on the loan I got for this business was 78 pages long. And it was a nightmare. I didn't understand. I was up till 2-3 a.m. But know what you're signing. And also, whenever you get out a loan, please make sure that you have a diary date, because you could take out a loan for a year and then it gets to the end of the year and you don't know. Suddenly you've got these incredible payments, and check the percentage of interest, because some of these loans are anything up to 30-40%. I know it sounds astronomical, but I've seen cases like that. So would I recommend it? Try and run your business the best way you can with your savings. And right now, what better time is there to save money? You're not going out. There's no hair, there's no nails, there's a man, there's no barbers, there's no gym, you know, there's nowhere to eat out. Save your money. There's never been a better time to save your money. Could I give 3 steps on ways to think out of the box when wanting to change the market? So I would like to know what market you're in, because every market is finite. But 3 steps on ways to think out of the box. Research allows you the knowledge to then think about the best way to approach something. So that's 1 step. The next step would be, if you're wanting to change a market, you need to look at the reason of why it needs to be changed. Whenever you're doing anything, you need the solution to the problem. There's no point. That's the whole point of tech. It's a solution to a problem. And the last thing, in relation to think out the box, is you have to take time out to zone out. So sometimes you're doing all of this research and it's almost too much. take a day to walk down the beach, go for a drive, look at what the market's doing and track it for a period, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, and then you'll be able to work out what you are needing to do. I sound like a jack of all trades. How did you choose the one to master? I'm still choosing the one to master. The way I'm choosing it is quality of life. I'm now a mother. I'm not, in a relationship with anyone, but the jack of all trades allowed me, I like to be called Jill of all trades, sorry to be rude, but the Jill of all trades, it allowed me to choose the one to master because of my quality of life. So going into tech now is going to give me a better quality of life, and that's how I've chosen it. And also, I'm more and more as I get older wanting to change the narrative. I think that, Black Lives Matter is something that I've been doing for all my life since I run away from home. That's been continual for me, and that is something that's I'm very passionate with. So the app will allow me to do that. Which of your business is the hardest work? Being a mother. I know it's not a business, but that's being a mother and juggling. That is the hardest part. But if I was to say out of all of them, I think entertainment was the hardest because it's so intensive and the turnaround is a lot quicker, and you're relying on suppliers when you're building, a £9 million set, and the client's aspirations are this, and then there's a piece missing at customs, or it's stuck at Mallorca, or the driver hasn't turned up. An industry where you're reliant on a lot more people to deliver your service allows you far more open to problems and there being issues. So I would say the event side of the business was the most stressful. What advice do you have for someone who is switching careers due to COVID, for example, going from a food business to art, selling my art? How do you build contacts in an industry you have no connection to? Okay, so the food business, everyone that was buying your food, or whether you were in a supplier, everyone loves art. Art is a very personal thing. If you have a database, it's very important in anything you do that you build a database, a CRM system, that you get polls. So if you think 47 people are looking at the questions right now, I can see on my right-hand side, I'm building up. I know that 33% of the people that are engaged in this conversation are employed. Understand the demographic of the field that you're going to, but the most important thing is social media. Build up the people that follow you. Set up an Instagram account that is just for art. More importantly, set up ROKSIA. ROKSIA is going to allow you to show your art. It's going to allow people to buy your art straight away. So, and that will allow you just to send out the profile of you being art. So it'll be suddenly, everyone will know Niha as the artist, but you need to recondition people's minds. And that's by letting everyone know now that you are an artist. And the way you build contacts is word of mouth. That is the key component of anything you do, is people will say word of mouth, and send your art to specific people if they like your art, and usually do that to the people with the most biggest followings. So then that's how it generates, and word of mouth spreads. I hope that helps. Who was my mentor? John Hunt was my mentor on Puff Daddy. So John Hunt was the owner and founder of Foxtons. He is still my mentor. We meet once a month and he gives me advice on my business. And I have a business manager. It's actually a businessman called Jonathan Perrin, and he runs a business called Accountant on Board, and he charges me a monthly fee, and he's my soundboard, and also Puff Daddy when I can get hold of him. As an employer, do you think it's a negative thing to see someone jump a little between jobs when they're in their 20s? Would it reduce their employability, or does it come across as them gaining various experiences and finding the right fit for them? I think that's a brilliant question, whoever you are, because you're anonymous. So I can't know you if you were to ever contact me again. But do I think it's negative? I think if I continue in the space of a year, saw you flitting between 10 or 11 jobs, I would be slightly hesitant to feel that you're walking in here with, am I going to be one of that 20? But I'm much more of a people person, and that's why I set up ROKSIA. I know straight away by looking at someone, hearing them speak, if they're clear and they have a plan, I'm more likely to give you a job, and if I like you. But I would say generally, having worked in a corporate environment and having friends in HR for big corporations and other companies, I think, yes, if you're flitting, it's showing that you're not decisive on what you're wanting to do. And for an employer, you want stability. So I would say try and stay in a job for 6 months, because that is the time frame that all employers look at, because by then that you should have known whether you liked it or not. That's my best advice to you. Would it reduce your employability? No. If you are employable, you're employable. Are there any podcasts you recommend? I don't really listen to podcasts. I listen to TED Talks. So I apologize. I can't give you any podcasts. One of my clients, if you ever want to Ghana, her name is Vanessa, does an incredible podcast called The Ghana Guide. And that's something that I love doing because I want to go to Ghana. But in relation to actual podcasts, there are none that I've really resonated with. Magnificent Mothers is one that she does as well, which is brilliant. So that's a podcast, the only podcast that I on YouTube that I subscribe to. But TED Talks, they do 10 or 15-minute ones, which are brilliant at the moment. Hope that helps. Sherelle, what has been your biggest business lesson learned, and will there be any more minor to majors? Drew, who works for me, was laughing today. He was like, you just did minor to major and then you jumped off it and you're like, you found Clubhouse and you just dropped it. I keep it moving. But my biggest business lesson has been, don't employ friends or family. Don't do it. It just doesn't work. I don't care what anyone says. It doesn't work. That is my biggest business lesson. And also be very careful on growing too quickly. You know, when you grow too quickly, it's harder to manage, and you then need to get people in to manage the separate levels. So that's my best advice to you. And will I be doing any more minor to majors? I'm going to bring it back. I ran out of content. I spoke about everything. So if you want it, please let me know, Sherelle, what you want me to talk about, and I'll do one for you next Friday. I'd be more than happy to. Abigail, where do you start if you want to get into property but have no knowledge, and how do you get yourself experience? I didn't have any knowledge, and I didn't have any knowledge of London. I was this girl who listened to hip hop and loved selling and wanted to buy designer clothes. And I was quite brash when I walked in on my interview. I didn't get the job, by the way, for the first 3 times. The only way I got it is because when I went into another job, I pitched the owner of Foxtons for a telesales advert. So that's why I always think to myself, like, if you want it, you're blessed if you know what you want to go into. So if you want to get into property is commercial, residential, property management. You know, you could be a surveyor. What part of property do you want to get to? So that's one tier. Once you decide to say, it's like, I want to get into commercial property, who are the top 10 commercial agents? Follow all of their social media sites, follow the owners of those companies on LinkedIn, reach out to them, read about all of their talks, all of their YouTubes, any statement that they have, and then that gives you the in. So, hi, Mr. Smith. I was really interested in your commentary about the changes in legislation for commercial property in the UK. I personally feel this. I would love to have a conversation with you. Actually, I would love you to mentor me. Could you please let me know if I could call you on Monday at 5 or on Tuesday at 6? Monday at 5, Tuesday at 6. It's one of the two, isn't it? It's not a yes or no. I hate it when people are like, is it okay if I call you? And the generation below me is very like that. Don't be like that. And also, please, when you're writing an email, when you're contacting me, I had 6 CVs today, and none of them had the mobile number at the bottom of the attachment, as in, like, when you send me the email, I'm not going to open up the attachment, print it, and it's some small little thing. Just put your mobile number on it. Like, how can people contact you if you don't put your mobile number on it? So hopefully that will give you the best insight, Abigail. Being a woman of color, when having conversations with clients about who you are, what you stand for, and when they ask about challenges of employment and race and industry you work in, should you be vocal about it? Very interesting. I contacted a lot of journalists. I actually did my own research about women of color in property at the director level, and there are none. There are none. There's not one. There's not one. I'm the only woman, and to be honest, I'm not black. So, you know, it is devastating. I employ who is going to be my new MD. She's Shauna Edwards. She's black. But, you know, the emphasis for her, I think, is always, you know, yes, we can do PR about that, but Shauna is black, yes, but she is an incredible associate director. She's helped me raise and build this company for 9 years. So it is that, and it's important that we address it, but it is absolutely devastating that I wanted to run this article and no journalist picked up. One journalist actually said, Becky, this is too controversial. So I am going to start tweeting it very soon, and I'm going to be very vocal about it, and I'm going to be known and labeled the angry. I can't be labeled the angry black woman because I'm not black, but I will definitely be labeled the angry Iranian woman. But it is something that we can only change if we all continue talking about it, and also start walking into more rooms, start being more representative at the top level. And, you know, go for management jobs, go for engineering jobs, go for the jobs that we don't see women of color in. That's the only way we're going to change the narrative. I'm sorry if that's a burden, but Rosa Parks sat on that bus and it was difficult for her to do that. We have to make the change by doing the things we don't want to do. There's no women in politics. There's Diane Abbott, but let's not talk about Diane Abbott and what she represents. I'm not a fan. So get into these things. That's why I'm doing all of these webinars, all of these public speakings, to define my track record of accomplishments, which gives me the bigger voice. The more successful you are, the more people want to hear you and be around you, unfortunately. So that's the best way to deal with it. What's the best way to find a mentor? Shadow to Shine, unfortunately, we're not currently, there is a waiting list. We're not signing up any more candidates, but please do, email. We can add you to the waiting list because that is what we offer, a mentoring availability. But the way I found my mentors is I followed them. I know everything about them, and I've asked for the and just an opportunity. If it's just an hour, just to start, and then move that on. But once you get your foot through the door, LinkedIn is probably your best way. But through ROKSIA, you'll be able to find so many mentors because you'll be able to search your field, and then everyone in your field will come up, and you'll be able to message them. It works in the same way as Instagram, that you've got general, primary, so they might not always get back to you, but it's another channel and another social media platform that allows you direct access to the people. But to be someone's mentee, you've got to prove to them that you're hungry to learn. So be very organized in the way you contact them, and be relentless and tenacious. What do I think the most popular job in 2030 will be? I think it will be digital, and I think it will be consultancy in getting into digital in any job, and it'll be engineering, or I think it will be consultancy in digital. That makes sense. Where would I recommend finding a mentor if I'm starting up a new business as an older person? Find a, it doesn't matter that you're an older person, you can't find a mentor. There's no age restrictions in mentoring and menteeing. Sometimes these things are all in our head. If you're older and you want a mentor that is younger than you, brilliant. Personally, I would want a mentor that's younger than me, because I want to know what have them on the ground. So I would recommend finding a mentor if you're starting up a new business. I wouldn't refer to you as an older person. Get that out. You're starting a new business. You're an entrepreneur. I'm very insightful. I want to learn more for you because I am ready to apply and start building. How can I do so, please? I do private mentoring now. It's not the cheapest, unfortunately, but I have tried to price it because of my time. So I will continue doing these webinars. ROKSIA will allow you to have more of an insight. And if you did want private mentoring, that is something that I currently do have some availability for. So please contact me independently for that. Any advice for singers on how to make a living out of it in London? So I did this Women in Music talk with Ray Black, the singer, last night, and Amber Donoso, who's an amazing reggaeton singer, Latin American Chilean girl. And they both said the questions were, how do I make money from music? Writing. A songwriter makes the most money out of any artist. So start writing. At the moment, you can't busk, but you could, if you know how to write music, you know how to read music, perhaps you start giving kids tutorials on Zoom on how to read music, or singing lessons where, young kids want to be singers, and you start charging, 40 quid an hour, 30 quid an hour. Look at the rate cards, but that's the only other avenue I can see right now, because you can't do any live shows. So I hope that helps. Where do you, as Becky Brad, want to be known, and when it's all said and done? I want to be known for being one of the most successful women in tech that had a social responsibility and built over 3,000 orphanages across the world, which were called ROKSIA Academies. So when kids found out they were going to one of the ROKSIA orphanages, they were actually really super excited. The biggest thing for me, and things that breaks my heart, which I'm so passionate about, is the amount of love that my 7-year-old boy needs, and how scared and sensitive he is. I mean, it makes me cry thinking about it. So to know there are kids that are his age going through the foster care system and situations where they're not even given a hug by someone that they know consistently, absolutely is the reason why the world is in the shit that it's in right now. So that's why I want to change, and that's why I want to be remembered. How long do I think I can be employed and self-employed for at the same time? I mean, I was employed and self-employed for 6 years, but when my company did find out, they tried to sack me. So be very careful with it. So be understanding of looking at your HR contract when you're employed and knowing what you can and can't do, because at any point it can be sackable. Ed Milet, Diary of a CEO, and Lewis Howes, a great podcast. Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Sonia. That's amazing. I'll write those down. Thank you. What has been the biggest highlight of my career so far? The biggest highlight of my career so far has been my doors being open and me still having a business after 10 years. It's my 10-year anniversary, so that's going to be my highlight. I've got 3 minutes left, I'm being told by my head of creative in the corner. So that's been the highlight, that I'm still here. definitely. And do I think the digital marketing path is too male populated, or do you think it's as diverse in terms of race? I don't think any industry is diverse in terms of race. And I think digital marketing is one of those industries, and I don't think it is diverse. I think it is something that has to change, and it can only change by us building a profile like ROKSIA, which allows people to see your color straight away. This is me. Hi, I'm Becky, and I'm Iranian. And I don't know what color you want to call me, but I'm definitely not white. And not that that's a problem, but I'm definitely Persian. So hopefully ROKSIA will change that. But I think, you know, I want to end on, please, if you're polling, please fill it out. I really appreciate the participants that joined. I hope this has helped you understand where your career is going in the next 10 years. I want to end on really take time in ensuring that you are focused in where you want your end story to be. And I wrote something the other day, which was me writing a letter to myself on my deathbed. So I wish I brought it to read it to you, but it's basically, I'm sitting on my bed. My son has come in with his 4 kids. His youngest is sitting on my lap, and he's pulling at my hair like he always did. Secretly, he's my favorite. I'm so glad that the ROKSIA Academies are doing so brilliantly. And even though I only got 100 million for the sale of ROKSIA, it allowed me to change things and allowed young Black kids especially to be respected and treated the way that they should be. And I made a change, I made a difference. So I know that when I'm buried and people look over my ROKSIA profile and see everything that I achieved and accomplished, that more than anything, my son is proud, but that I change lives. So your career needs to be defined by your legacy and your footsteps of how you want to be remembered. So write down how you want to be remembered. Almost write your eulogy. I know it sounds morbid, and I talk about this all the time, and everyone's like, you're going to live to 100, Becky, shut up. But you can only write that story because you're the one writing the story. You're the creator of your career. You are the curator of your career. So the next decade is determined by you. And last night, by the way, was a new full moon. We're in, I'm deep into astrology. We're in the month of Capricorn, which is one which decides and sets the intentions for the next year. Set your intentions, understand, do your research, be at the forefront of your field, be knowledgeable in whatever industry you are, and you can only succeed. And be careful to always listen more than you speak, because you learn a lot more when you're listening than speaking. And I spent the first 15 years of my career consistently talking loudly to be heard. I would have learned a lot more if I'd sat back and listened. So I think hopefully that has helped everybody. I hope we've recorded this. I don't think we did. We have, great. So I might upload it for everyone else to use, or I might send you guys a version of it if I have your email addresses, so you can just hear me spouting out this stuff again. I hope it's been helpful. I'll check on the chat. And you guys have enjoyed it. So you're going to need to see me MC now, winging it. That's how you make it. I mean, I'm sorry, but there is Olivier, as unprofessional, there is some element of winning it. So thank you to everyone. I really wish you the best of luck. I hope that your spirits are uplifted at this time and you're not feeling too negative. Please remember that if anything goes wrong in your career, it's out of your hands. We're in a pandemic. Just do your best to reinvent and recreate. And it's never been more of an exciting time to wipe the slate clean and start again. So thank you. Spread the word, guys. ROKSIA.com. But more importantly, Shadow to Shine. Please follow it on Instagram. My Instagram handles, if I could bring them up now, if I could bring up the sheet with the Instagram handles, I'm all about this. So here we go. On the bottom, I have got @Shadow to Shine. For Twitter, and info@ShadowShine for email. So this is in conjunction with Shadow to Shine. I'd like to thank Karina and Drew for setting it all up, and I really enjoyed this. So have a kick-ass midweek, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.